Mira was bored. The alien academy was quiet that day. No training, no action. Just lectures and silence. She sat on the edge of a silver bench, staring at the sky through the glass dome above her. Stars sparkled, and 3 moons slowly drifted past each other. She sighed. Then Daniel walked in. He was human, the only one in her class. Clumsy, soft, always smiling. Mira thought he was strange, but in a funny way. He didn't talk much about his home planet, Earth. Most aliens didn't care anyway. Humans had no real warriors, no great power. But Mira liked how Daniel tried, even if he failed most of the time. "Hey Daniel," she said, standing up. "Want to see something cool?" Daniel looked up from the device he was holding. "Sure, what is it?" he asked, curious as always. Mira led him down a quiet hall. At the end was a sealed chamber, glowing with green light. She pressed her hand on the sensor, and the doors opened slowly. Inside was a tall display with a set of armor, old and golden. It shimmered like metal, but looked light like cloth. Strange symbols moved along its surface like tiny rivers of light. "This belonged to my great-grandmother," Mira said proudly. "She fought in the Battle of Black Suns." Daniel whistled. "It looks amazing," Mira grinned. "It's just for show now, can't even power up," she said. "Want to try it on?" Daniel blinked. "What, me?" "No way," he laughed. "I'd probably fall over." "Come on," Mira teased. "My cousins did it when they were 5, she giggled, trying to impress him and make her day less boring. He hesitated, then smiled. "All right, but don't blame me if I break it." He stepped forward, and Mira helped him lift the armor. To her surprise, the pieces adjusted to his shape. The chest plate clicked into place. The arms sealed smoothly. The helmet dropped onto his head with a quiet hiss then. Everything changed. The room lights flickered. The floor vibrated. The armor lit up, glowing brighter and brighter. Symbols moved faster, racing up and down the surface like fire. "Mira," Daniel said, his voice echoing strangely from inside the helmet. "I feel warm." Mira took a step back, heart pounding. "This isn't right," she whispered. "The armor's activating." Suddenly, a pulse of blue energy shot out from Daniel's chest. It hit the walls and made the air hum like thunder. Alarms began to flash outside the chamber. "Get it off!" Mira shouted, reaching for the helmet, but when she touched it, her hand bounced back like it hit a force field. Daniel didn't look scared. His eyes behind the visor were calm, focused. He raised his hand, and a glowing shield appeared in front of him. "Not made of metal, but pure energy, Daniel." Mira yelled again, but he didn't answer. He took a step forward, and the ground cracked beneath his foot. Then a voice filled the room. Not from Daniel, not from any speaker. A deep, ancient voice. Host recognized. It said, "Warrior." Protocol unlocked. Mira stared, frozen. This armor wasn't ceremonial. It wasn't dead. It was waiting. More energy flowed from the armor, filling the room with strange symbols in the air. They floated like dust, glowing softly. Daniel stood in the middle, arms at his sides, body calm like he was part of the storm. Footsteps echoed from outside. Other students were running, scared, shouting for the guards. Mira didn't move. She couldn't. She had only wanted a laugh, a joke. Now something ancient had awakened, and it chose a human. The voice came again, louder this time. "Trial begins, Daniel." Turned slowly toward Mira. His voice came through the armor, low but clear. "Mira," he said, "I think something's wrong." Mira took a shaky breath. "Yeah," she said softly, "very wrong." Then the lights went out. Only the glow of the armor remained, and somewhere far away, something woke up. Something. Watching, sirens screamed. Doors slammed open. Heavy boots echoed down the metal hallway. Security officers rushed toward the chamber with weapons raised. "Step away from the human." One of them shouted, but Mira didn't move. She stood frozen as Daniel turned slowly, his body glowing in golden armor. Strange lines of light circled him like wind. The officers hesitated. They had never seen this armor alive before. Daniel took one step forward, and the ground beneath cracked again. The lights flickered across the ceiling. He looked confused, not scared. "I didn't do anything," he said, voice deep and strange behind the helmet. "It just woke up." The leader of the security team, Commander Rel, stepped closer. "Remove the armor immediately," he ordered, "or we'll remove it for you." Daniel looked at his hands. "I can't," he said. "It won't come off." Myra stepped between them. "Stop." "He didn't steal it," she shouted. "I put it on him. It was just a joke." Commander Rel didn't look amused. "Do you even understand what that armor is?" He growled. "It's sacred, ancient, and dangerous. I thought it was dead." Myra whispered. "We all did." Daniel's body glowed brighter. Then suddenly, the armor spoke again. "Host confirmed," it said. "Compatible DNA system complete." Everyone stopped, that voice deep old. Not from any machine they knew was impossible. Commander Rel took a step back. "Compatible DNA?" He repeated. "That's not possible." The armor was designed by Myra's ancestors thousands of years ago. It only bonded with their bloodline, their genetic code. No outsider had ever worn it, not even the same species from a different family. And yet, it had chosen a human. Daniel swayed a little, then dropped to one knee. His breathing grew heavy. "It's in my head," he said, holding his helmet. "I can hear voices, memories." Myra knelt beside him. "What do they say?" "They're showing me battles," Daniel whispered. "Burning skies, flying ships, soldiers screaming. It feels like I've been there." Myra's heart pounded. This wasn't just a machine waking up. The armor was remembering something through him. Suddenly, the glowing lights around Daniel flared. A sphere of blue energy blasted out, throwing everyone back. The security guards slammed against the walls, groaning in pain. Only Myra stayed standing, her body shielded by a faint pulse from the armor itself. Then came silence. Daniel collapsed, but the armor kept glowing. The air around him shimmered with heat. Commander Rel struggled to stand. "We need to take him to the archives," he said. "He's connected to something bigger." "Something we don't understand," Myra nodded, her face pale. This was no longer about school or honor. This was history opening its eyes again. They placed Daniel in a gravity bed. He was unconscious, but calm. The armor didn't resist this time, but it also didn't release him. As the bed floated through the corridor, other students and staff stared in silence, some with fear, others with curiosity. Whispers followed Myra everywhere. Why did the armor choose him? Is he a threat? Is it a sign? Inside the archive center, the oldest alien minds waited. Historians, scientists, and elders watched the glowing armor closely. One of them, Elder Vus, leaned on his staff and spoke softly. "This armor was created during the War of Extinction," he said, "to fight an enemy we no longer name. It was meant to bond with only the strongest warriors of our kind. And yet, it chose a human." He looked at Myra. "Do you know what this means?" Myra swallowed hard. "No," she admitted. "I don't." Elder Vus nodded slowly. "Then listen carefully," he said. "If the armor has awakened, then the enemy it was built to fight may return." Everyone went silent. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. Just then, Daniel's eyes opened. They glowed bright blue like twin stars. He sat up slowly and spoke in a voice not entirely his own. "They're coming," he said. "They know I'm alive." Guards stared in shock as Daniel walked through the thick alloy like it was water. No weapon, no tool, just a single wave of his hand. The glowing symbols on his armor pulsed with quiet power. The path behind him sizzled from the heat he didn't even notice. "Did you see that?" One of the alien guards whispered. "He didn't touch it." Inside the archive chamber, Elder Vus leaned forward. "This is not possible," he said, voice shaking. "No one alive has ever done this, not even our strongest." Daniel stood at the center of the ancient room, the armor now shaped perfectly to his body. It didn't look borrowed anymore. It looked like it belonged to him. He was awake now, eyes glowing faintly, but his voice was quiet, unsure. "I didn't mean to do that," he said. "I just wanted the door open." Mira stood nearby, watching him closely. Every second he wore the armor, something new happened, something unreal. He could move things with a glance, change the weight of objects just by touching them, sense people through walls, and sometimes he spoke in languages he had never heard before. Daniel didn't look proud. He looked afraid. "I'm not supposed to have this power," he told Mira. "I'm just a regular human." Myra didn't answer, because deep inside, a quiet fear was growing. What if he wasn't just a regular human? What if Earth's history was not what everyone believed? She took him to the science wing for testing. Machines scanned his blood, his brain, his genetic code. The results shocked the room. "He has traces of ancient coding," the lead researcher said. "Old warrior tech, buried deep in his DNA." "But humans didn't build this armor," Myra argued. "They were weak during the Great Wars." The researcher shook her head. "Maybe the history books were wrong," she said. "Maybe humans were stronger than we ever knew." Daniel stood silently, listening. Then he spoke again, slowly. "There's something inside the armor," he said. "It's not just tech, it's memory." They hooked his mind to the armor's neural feed. A beam of light shot from the chest plate and wrapped around his head. Mira held her breath. What they saw next changed everything. A memory played in the air like a living dream. Not Daniel's, not Mira's, but the armor's. It showed a great battle stars burning, giant ships exploding in space, an enemy swarm, black as night, moving like shadows across planets, and in the center of it all humans, but not like Daniel. These were giants in glowing armor, leading armies, moving like lightning, destroying the darkness. One of them looked straight at the memory viewer. He looked exactly like Daniel. Mira gasped. "That's you," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "That's someone I've never met." But the truth was clear. He shared blood with those ancient warriors. He was connected to something long forgotten. Later that night, Daniel sat alone in a quiet chamber. He stared at his hands, watching the faint light move under his skin. He wasn't sleeping. The armor wouldn't let him. It whispered, not with words, but feelings, pain, war, duty, a purpose buried for ages. Mira entered the room, her steps soft. "You okay?" she asked. Daniel looked up, tired but calm. "I think the armor's waking me up," he said. "Not just at learning me, but me remembering it." She sat beside him. "I don't know what you are anymore," she admitted, "but I don't think it's a bad thing." Daniel gave a small smile. "Neither do I," he said. "But someone out there might." Just then, an emergency light flashed red. A guard rushed in, out of breath. "We picked up a signal," he said. "Someone, or something is coming this way." Mira stood up fast. "Who?" The guard hesitated. "We don't know," he said. "But the signal came right after the armor activated." Daniel stood too. The armor pulsed on his chest like a heartbeat. "They felt me," he said softly. "Whoever they are. They've been waiting, light years away, in the cold darkness beyond the stars." A machine opened its eyes. It had no heart, no skin, no breath. But it remembered. It had waited in silence for over 2,000 years, buried deep beneath a dead moon, surrounded by broken metal and frozen bones, waiting for one signal, one voice. Now that signal had come. The machine's name had been lost in time, but its purpose had not. Seek the host. Destroy the code. Erase the bloodline. It rose slowly. Massive arms unfolding from black steel walls. A red eye blinked in its chest. Far above, old satellites began to turn toward it. Obeying again. The war was not over, only paused. Back on Mira's planet, the stars above shimmered with peace. But peace was a lie. Daniel stood at the center of a quiet training hall. Mira watched as he lifted a heavy stone block into the air, using only his thoughts. It floated silently, then moved in slow circles around him. "You're getting stronger every hour," she said. Daniel lowered the stone gently. Or the armor. Is, he replied. I'm still just me. Mira wasn't so sure anymore. He moved differently now. He didn't trip or stumble like before. His eyes scanned everything, always aware. She remembered the old stories, warriors who were chosen by the stars, weapons that responded to thoughts, not hands, and enemies that could not be stopped by numbers. The old enemy had been defeated, or so her people believed, but history was always written by the survivors, and survivors forget faster than the dead. Do you ever feel like something's coming? Daniel asked suddenly. Mira paused. Yes, she said. Since the moment the armor woke up, just then, an alert tone rang through the building. Red lights flashed across the walls. Mira tapped the console. A hologram appeared. Space sensors had picked up a moving object. Fast, silent, unnatural. It's not one of ours, she said. It's not sending any signal. Daniel stared at the image. A black shape, sharp and cold, cutting through space like a blade. That's not a ship, he said quietly. That's a hunter. Far above, in orbit, a scout drone approached the dark shape. It scanned for weapons, engines, life. But before it could finish, the black shape opened, and the drone was gone, torn apart in a flash of red light. The enemy had arrived, not in peace, not in warning, but in silence. Back on the surface, the skies began to shift. Clouds twisted, winds changed. Mira and Daniel stood on the roof of the research tower, watching the sky. A low hum filled the air, vibrating in their bones. What is that sound? Mira asked. Daniel closed his eyes. He could hear the armor whispering again. They've found me, he said. They're coming to finish what they started. Mira's heart raced. What are they? Daniel looked up at the stars. I don't know yet, he said, but they hate what I carry. A ship landed suddenly on the rooftop. Myra's mentor, Commander Rel, stepped out. Get inside, he ordered. The council has called a lockdown. They're already here, Daniel said, voice calm. You can't hide from something that never sleeps. Commander Rel hesitated. For the first time he looked unsure. You know what's coming, don't you? I feel it, Daniel replied. Like thunder before a storm. That night, 3 more black shapes appeared on the edge of the system. No voices, no faces, only red eyes and metal hunger. Inside the archive tower, Mira stood beside Daniel, watching defense plans unfold on the screen. We're not ready for this, she said. Daniel didn't look away from the map. Then we prepare, he said. Together. She looked at him. The strange human who now stood like a soldier born in battle. He was still Daniel, but something ancient had taken root inside him, and it refused to be silent. A soft pulse ran through the floor, an ancient signal. The armor responded instantly. Symbols flared on his arms, chest, and back. It wasn't reacting to danger, it was calling to it. Far in space, the enemy ships changed course. They had found their target. And they would not stop, not until the host was dead, and the last spark of Earth's warrior blood was erased from the stars. The sky was on fire. Sirens wailed across the city. Dark enemy ships dropped through the clouds like black knives. Energy blasts rained down from above, tearing through towers and streets. In the chaos, Daniel ran. Mira was beside him, panting. Her armor half-formed. Behind them, the archive tower cracked in half, flames shooting from its core. They're targeting you, she shouted. Daniel didn't answer. His eyes were glowing, and his mind was somewhere far away. The enemy wasn't attacking the city, it was chasing him. Extraction points ahead, Mira called, pulling his arm. A scout ship sat waiting behind a broken statue, its wings humming low. They leapt in, and the ship lifted off just as a black projectile hit the ground behind them. The explosion threw fire into the sky, but the scout ship sped upward, piercing the clouds and rising into orbit. They were safe for now. Inside the ship, silence returned. Mira sat across from Daniel, watching him carefully. His armor was still glowing, but dimmer now, like it was resting. I've never seen them fight like that, she whispered. No noise, no warning, just total destruction. Daniel looked out the window. They're afraid, he said. Not of me, but of what I might become. Mira frowned. How do you know that? He turned to her. I don't know, he said. But the armor does. They flew for hours, heading toward the edge of the star system. Their goal was a forgotten warrior moon once, a training site for Mira's ancestors. Now it was empty, cold, and buried in dust. As the ship landed on the gray surface, the engines hissed and cooled. Mira stepped out first. Blaster ready, Daniel followed. But the moment his feet touched the moon's surface, the ground reacted. Symbols lit up beneath him, circles, lines, ancient marks glowing through the rock. Mira gasped. This place remembers you. I've never been here, Daniel said. But maybe someone like me has. They entered a large temple, half buried in stone and shadow. Inside were massive statues of armored warriors, taller than both of them, but not alien human. Daniel stepped toward one statue and placed his hand on its chestplate. It lit up, gold and blue. A door opened behind it, hissing softly. Dust blew out like breath from a tomb. Inside was a dark chamber, untouched for centuries. In the center stood a pedestal with a cube hovering above it. Daniel reached for it. But Mira stopped him. Wait, she said. That's an Earth artifact. He looked surprised. How do you know? My grandmother showed me one in a museum once, she said. Your people used them to store memories, battle data, commands, secrets. Daniel took the cube, and the armor responded instantly. The cube melted into his hand, sinking into his skin. A light burst from his eyes, and he dropped to his knees. Daniel! Mira shouted, but he held up a hand. I'm fine, he said, voice echoing. It's showing me everything. Visions filled his mind. Earth burning, cities falling. A last order from a dying commander. Scatter the bloodline, humanity. Hadn't been defeated. It had hidden. The armor was part of a plan, a final hope, to be worn one day by someone strong enough to finish the war. Daniel opened his eyes, breathing hard. I was never supposed to be a soldier, he said. But I think I was always meant to be found. Mira stepped closer, her voice soft. You're more than just a human now, she said. You're a symbol. Before Daniel could answer, the walls shook. A red light blinked at the top of the temple. They found us, Mira said, eyes wide. They tracked the cube. Outside, black enemy ships dropped onto the moon's surface. Troops of machines spilled out, marching forward in silence. Daniel stood up slowly. This time, the armor wasn't just glowing, it was burning. He raised his hand, and a golden spear formed from light. He turned to Mira. We end this together, he said. Mira smiled, drawing her weapon. Let's show them what human and alien can do side by side, and outside, under a dead sky. The battle for the truth began. Asterisk blood touched the stone. And the moon came alive. Daniel fell to his knees. A deep cut across his arm dripped onto the temple floor, the moment it touched the symbols beneath him. Everything changed. The stone glowed red, then gold. The entire chamber lit up with streams of light racing across the walls. The floor split apart, and a hidden staircase began to rise from the dust. Mira froze. That wasn't armor. Magic, she whispered. That was you. Daniel looked at his bleeding arm. His blood shimmered with tiny golden sparks. Not natural, not normal. Something else lived inside it, something ancient. I didn't do this, he said. I think. My blood remembered something. They followed the light down the hidden stairs. Below the temple was a sealed chamber, locked for centuries. But the moment Daniel approached, it opened. No hand scan, no code, just his heartbeat. Inside the chamber stood a black pod, taller than a man. On its surface were old Earth symbols, scratched but still readable. Mira leaned in to read. Property of Project Dawnfire. What's Project Dawnfire? She asked. Daniel shook his head. I've never heard of it. But the pod opened anyway, responding to his presence. Inside was a glass case with a floating crystal. And beneath it a message, a human voice played through hidden speakers. "If you're hearing this, then humanity has fallen," the voice said. "But the last of our warrior seed lives on. We scattered it among the stars, hidden in genes, buried in time. If you carry this code, you are our final chance." Daniel's hands trembled. "They didn't lose the war," he whispered. "They just vanished." Mira stared at him, her voice low. "You're not just wearing the armor," she said. "You are the armor's purpose." The crystal inside the pod pulsed and floated toward Daniel. It entered his chest without pain, merging into the armor. Suddenly, new layers wrapped around him. His suit transformed sleeker, brighter, stronger. Golden wings of light flickered behind him for a second, then vanished. The armor wasn't finished before. Now it was just then. The ground shook violently. Outside, enemy fire struck the temple walls. The machines had broken through, their red eyes flashed as they marched through the dust. Weapons raised, Mira raised her blaster, ready to fight, but Daniel stepped forward, glowing like a small sun. "No more running," he said. "This ends now." He walked into the open. Facing the enemy head-on, they opened fire energy beams flying toward him. But none of them touched him. The armor bent the blasts like wind moving around a stone. He raised his hand, and the ground rose with it. A wave of light burst outward, throwing the machines into the air. Mira watched, stunned. He wasn't just fighting, he was commanding. And then something unexpected happened. The machines stopped, frozen mid-attack. One of them lowered its weapon. It scanned Daniel, and then "Melt, what's happening?" Mira asked, confused. Daniel blinked. "I think they're recognizing me," he said. The armor must have had override codes built into their systems. More machines began to kneel, their red eyes turning blue. The others backed away, glitching, unsure. But then a giant shadow appeared above them. The enemy mothership, black as night, hovered above the moon. It blocked out the stars, and its voice boomed from the sky. "You are not the commander," it said. "You are a copy." Daniel looked up. "No," he replied. "I'm a descendant." The mothership charged a weapon. Brighter than a sun, Mira grabbed Daniel's hand. "If you're really the last spark," she said, "then let's burn bright." Together, they leapt into the air, the armor carrying them higher than any alien tech ever had. Daniel raised both hands, and the armor responded with full power. A giant beam of golden light shot upward. It met the enemy blast in the sky and pushed it back. The mothership cracked, its systems overloaded by the forgotten code in Daniel's. Blood. One final word came from the enemy before it fell. Restart. Failed. The ship exploded in the upper atmosphere, silent, beautiful, final. Mira and Daniel landed softly on the broken stone. The moon was quiet again. She looked at him, smiling through tears. "You're not a copy," she said. "You're the key." Daniel looked at the armor, then at the stars. "I think I know who I am now," he said. "But there's one thing left to do." The stars were bleeding above Mira's homeworld. Space burned with fire and shadow. Enemy ships blotted out the sky, moving like a black storm. The final wave had arrived inside the high command tower. Alarms screamed. Screens blinked red. Officers shouted over each other, confused and afraid. "No one's responding. We've lost the outer fleets. They've surrounded the system." In the middle of the chaos, Daniel stood in silence. His armor glowed steady gold, pulsing like a heart. He wasn't panicking, he was listening. The armor spoke through feeling, not sound, and right now, it was calm. It was ready. Mira rushed into the chamber, wearing a new flight suit, black and blue, marked with her family crest. "They're targeting the capital," she said. "We have maybe 1 hour," Daniel nodded. "Then we stop them here." He turned to the officers, who fell silent, watching him. "I need every ship that can fly," he said. "Not just fighters, cargo vessels, shuttles, even old scrap haulers. Anything with an engine and a pilot." The general frowned. "That's suicide," he said. "You'll be sending civilians to fight machines." Daniel stepped forward. "They're not machines," he said. "They're a memory of a war we refused to finish. And today, we finish it." Minutes later, 100 ships rose into the sky, not perfect, not powerful, but united. Daniel stood at the front of the formation in Myra's old warship. She sat in the pilot seat, adjusting the controls. "I hope you're not planning to die out there," she said. Daniel smiled. "I don't plan to, but if I do, at least it'll be worth it." The fleet pushed into space. Enemy ships were waiting. Rows of cold, silent destroyers lined the edge of the system. They opened fire, but this time, Daniel was ready. He raised his hand toward the stars, and the armor responded. A golden field of light expanded from his ship, shielding the fleet. Lasers bent. Missiles exploded early. They pushed forward like a single wave. "Target their command cores," Mira shouted. "Daniel's field won't last forever." The battle exploded across the void. Ships collided. Fire burned in every direction. But something strange began to happen. Some of the enemy ships stopped. They scanned Daniel's energy signature and shut down. Others turned against their own fleet. The old warrior codes in Daniel's blood were rewriting their programming. He was no longer just a target. He was command. Still, one ship did not stop. The last core, the enemy's final command unit. Black, massive, with a weapon big enough to destroy a planet. And it was charging. Daniel knew the armor wasn't enough. He would have to get close, too close, Mira, he said over comms. "Get the others out now." "No," she replied. "We end this together. I can't protect you and destroy that ship at the same time." Daniel said. Mira paused, then said softly, "I'll protect you." They flew straight toward the last core, dodging blast after blast. Daniel's armor melted its way through the enemy's shields. Mira flew through fire like a comet, calm and fierce. Finally, they reached the center. The core pulsed red, ready to fire. Daniel jumped from the ship. Wings of gold formed behind him, carrying him into the heart of the machine. Inside, black cables reached for him, screaming like dying voices, but the armor cut through them like light through smoke. He reached the central crystal, the brain of the enemy. It looked almost human, almost like it once had a soul. The armor formed a blade, glowing with ancient energy. Daniel whispered, "This is for Earth," and drove the blade into the core. The ship screamed. A blinding light filled the system. Then silence. Hours later, the wreckage floated quietly in space. The enemy fleet had powered down completely. No more fighting, no more signals. It was over. Inside the rescue vessel, Mira pulled Daniel from the broken armor. He was alive barely. The armor faded into soft gray, its mission complete. He opened his eyes and smiled weakly. "Did we win?" Mira nodded, tears in her eyes. "You didn't just win," she said. "You changed everything." Weeks later, a statue was placed at the edge of the warrior temple. It showed a human in ancient armor, hand outstretched. Beside him, an alien girl stood with a blaster in one hand and a smile on her face. The plaque read, "One fought for the past, one for the future together. They saved the stars." And somewhere, far across the galaxy, a new generation was already whispering the legend of the last warrior, the human who wore forgotten armor and reminded the galaxy what courage truly meant.